Alright, hey guys, this is Nate, and I'm back for another audio commentary for WCReplays.com. And I've got another Undead versus Human for you guys who are clamoring for new ways to rock your next human opponent. So let's go ahead and get this replay opened up. The map is Tristful Glades, and the players are me, WOA Slide, currently level 20, as Undead versus Strobe Glossobidsun, who's currently level 21 and playing as human. So let's pause this game at 15 seconds on 1x speed with Fog of War on under my vision. Now, if you watched my last commentary, which was also versus human, that game I talked about fast expansion versus human and all that, and that's all well and good, but on a map especially like this, it's not quite as viable an option. It's much easier to be detected, much easier to be harassed, and it's just the human. I mean, I've done it several times on this map, and I find I have much more problems on this map than say Plunder Isle. So I decided, you know what, here I got a half decent opponent, or decent or good, I don't know, I never statsed him. But level 21, he obviously knows what he's doing, and so I figured, hey, I've been meaning to try fiends for a while, so that's what I'm going to do. So you guys will see how this turns out. So let's unpause in 3, 2, 1, unpause. Now I have to credit WOA Master, my buddy Mike, for giving me the hero combination I'm using here, and I've actually I can't recall ever seeing people do this before, but instead of going, you know, DK Lich for the nuking kind of thing or whatever, start by going DK, so you've got that coil that you need so badly, and then I go Crypt Lord second, which was his recommendation, and it's really very effective. You go Impale first, and then Beetles, and you don't summon the Beetles until they're level 2, and it gives you very important late game meat that you wouldn't have without going to tier 3, if that makes sense. So it's very effective, and also it's very easy to heal the Crypt Lord, so you've all of a sudden got a level 1 tank that's a real tank. I don't know. It works really well. And this game doesn't demonstrate it the best, but I'll try and get a game where that works very effectively, and it's definitely good. Again, it's not as good on these smaller maps, but that's all I play anyway. But I tried playing Knollwood a couple games ago, and I don't know, these big maps are not for me. So anyway, I'm just doing my current Fiend build. This is actually a bit different than what I used to do with my Fiend build. This build, and I definitely don't like this particularly, but the idea is to get that Tomb of Relics before my hero comes out. What I've been doing is getting Tomb of Relics a bit after my hero, so I basically creep my first creep camp and then come back and purchase Rods of Necromancy. Now, usually I would go and kill this peasant, but since this build sucks and I only got 2 ghouls instead of my typical 3, I don't want to take a ghoul off wood to go kill that peasant because it would slow me down a bit too much. So I'm going to continue to work on this build and figure out a way, and I don't know, I'm sure everyone knows a million different ways, and I'm sure I'll find out as soon as this game's over. But this is just the build I'm using for this game. So I'm going Death Knight first, not Crypt Lord. I've tried going Crypt Lord, and it's just too easy to lose Fiends to Stormbolt and Water Elementals and stuff. And it's very important that you go Death Knight first if you're going Fiends, I mean first Human anyway. Although I think it's generally a good idea to go for Death Knight always. Just that I've been going Crypt Lord a lot because the Beetles provide for very good scouting. But I don't know, I'm definitely leaning towards the Death Knight a lot more. Because once you get that level 2 coil and that level 2 aura, the Fiends are very easy to keep alive in comparison. So, or even level 1 aura for that matter. Now, I feel like I might go pretty well this game, and I'll try and go over that. Maybe we'll try the 1/2 speed, but I do make some errors in terms of burrowing, which I'll address later. And it's an important concept in the whole Fiend micro thing. And I don't know if you guys are aware, but I'm really I've been a real mainstream ghoul player. I really don't like going Fiends, or I didn't. But all of a sudden now I'm kind of switching, and I don't really go ghouls in any matchup. As you can see, I'm going Fiends in every matchup, pretty much. So anyway, I'm kind of relying on the Rods of Necromancy to tank. Clearly, it's a good idea because my Death Knight's not going to be really low health. But I also haven't scouted at all, so I really should send one of these skeletons up and just go into his base and see like what my opponent's doing. So that's really a mistake on my part not to scout him a little bit. Now, the build I was using obviously didn't work very well since I still only have 2 fiends, 4 minutes in the game. So I would not recommend following this build particularly. But if you want a good build, at least a build that's worked for me, try checking out the games where I play versus Orc. And don't worry, by the time I make another commentary, I'll have... Yeah, it's not... realistically, it's not going to make the game or break the game. But I'm picky like that. You know. So anyway, now that I have level 2 and I've crept the real easy spots in this camp, I'm just going to go and... I mean, if this were a bigger map, I would go for level 3. But considering the fact there's like a 99% chance my opponent built footmen, or some amount of footmen, there's a good chance that I'll be able to outrun them with that level 1 Unholy Order. So it's not really a huge risk for me. I'm just kind of sacrificing creeping time in order to do this, to harass him. And yeah, and ideally I should just go right after some peasants. See if we turn off Fog of War. Indeed, he's teching, so hitting some peasants would be a good idea. He's got that tower though, so I get scared off and I decide to chase after this footy. Not necessarily a great idea, kind of a waste of time. But no big deal, as we'll see. So at this point though, I have now seen what he's doing, and I know he's not fast expanded. That's the real big threat that I see with the strategy, is if your opponent fast expands. That's basically going to require constant harassment since you won't be able to counter expand yourself. And it's definitely possible to deal with a fast expansion. I don't know, again, going back to ST Go Stop, but back before the patch, or I don't know when, he really, I think it was him anyway, or a bunch of Korean players revolutionized the whole Fiends versus Human thing. No one would go Fiends versus Human, but they would basically harass the expansion with the Fiends, and apparently it worked pretty well in combination with the skeleton rods and all that. So yeah, all this stuff I'll be addressing in later commentaries. Just don't want to leave you guys hanging. Alright, so I've got a nice force of Fiends at this point. I'm going to go ahead and get a Slaughterhouse, and I'm also going to get a Temple of Damned, which I've been doing basically in every matchup except for versus Night Elf, but I'll probably even do it versus them. And what I do is I get 2 or 3 Necros and I put them in Adept, and what that lets me do is, first of all, it lets me get Unholy Frenzy on all my Fiends, which makes them 50% better. So if I have 6 Fiends, it's like having 9 Fiends. That's a pretty big deal. And for Raise Dead, and if your opponent has no form of Dispel, 2 or 3 Necromancers can get a good 12 Skeletons up without any upgrades or anything, and in effect win you the battle in the long run. So they're real nice to add in there, real nice little twist instead of just massing Fiends. So I like to do them. And especially against Human, although this Human, it wouldn't really be that effective, but against a Human with only a couple Priests, you know, it can really force them to think before engaging you, which is nice. So obviously getting a Slaughterhouse, can't really do anything without a Slaughterhouse, and just creeping as best as I can. I'm not really worrying about anything but creeping at this point. I'm perfectly content to just let the Human do whatever he wants. The one thing I should really check for though is a Tier 2 Expo, which is very, very viable, especially against Fiends, but he's not choosing to do that. So again, major component I'm missing here is that I'm not scouting, and that is what you should really use the Skeleton Rods for. You know, when you summon one, just send one of the Skeletons to expansion, one to the base, you know, every tier or so, and that'll pretty much cover your job for scouting. And it's very, very important, so take note of that. Now at this point, I see my Human opponent. I'm like, okay, bam, this is my big chance to get some nice kills in. So I hit a Footman. Now the big problem here is he's got Defend, but if you notice, I've got that beautiful Impale, and I'm up on a hill, so it's very hard for him to take out these Fiends. And with Focus Fire, I should actually be able to win this battle, although you might not think so. So lucky for me, I've got that Mana Stone on my DK, so I can keep on healing up my Fiends, Focus Firing. The Water Elementals are really my biggest problem, not the Footmen. And you'll notice there's kind of two main types of fiend micro in this guy's situation, and I'm using one of them. Yeah. The one I'm using is basically keep all my fiends in place, let the melee units get around them, but only dance one of them, and heal it with the Death Knight. And that pretty much means that I'm going to keep on getting hits in. The other one that I've tried doing a lot is putting all your fiends in a group and then one hit and dancing the entire group back. And that works well also, but you get a lot less hits in. So I don't know. But this is the kind I'm doing here. Now what I really could have used in that battle clearly was Burrow, so I wouldn't have to keep coiling my fiends. And I believe I'm researching that now. Now there's kind of good circumstances to use Burrow and bad ones to use Burrow. And I kind of like got this from Durandal from watching a couple of his games, which is basically that there's certain circumstances again where it's bad to burrow and certain circumstances where it's good. Good circumstance to burrow is when your fiend is gonna, first of all, your fiend is gonna have to survive, and your fiend is going to not have to. Right, that didn't make sense. Okay, like if your fiend is going to have to move around a lot to walk away, ideally you don't want to burrow, because if you can get your fiend to survive without burrowing it, then you want that extra damage and so on and so forth. So burrowing is kind of your last resort to keep it alive. It's one of your options to keep it alive. So your options are either burrow or move it, right? So if you're going to move your fiend, you want to make sure that it's not going to die by moving. So it's kind of like you want to burrow when your fiend can't move away. So, right, I'm still not making a lot of sense, but I think you guys might get what I'm saying. So let's say your fiend, there's like a row of footmen in front of your fiend, but you can move your fiend back. You don't burrow your fiend and then you move it back. But if your fiend is kind of surrounded partially and it's going to take a lot of hits moving back, then you burrow and then you unburrow, or something like that. It's pretty simple, really. And I do a pretty good job of it in this game with a few exceptions. So he's coming at my base now. Let's try slowing this down to 1/2 speed in a second. See how I micro all this. So let's slow down to 1/2 speed in 3, 2, 1, 1/2 speed. Alright, so here I'm not even really bothering to focus fire. He's lined himself up nicely enough for me. Clearly I can't impale the spellbreakers, but I'm just going to get off impales wherever I can. Now, I'm just going to put on alt here so I can see. That's what I was using constantly during this game. So I see he's focus firing there. Now in that circumstance, that was a bad use of burrow, as I was just talking about. You see how my fiend could have very easily backed up, no problem, and I wouldn't have had to waste the time burrowing him. I never had to lose that damage output. Now I'm not even remembering to unburrow him. So that was not a good use of burrow there, just to show you guys, and I'll show you guys a good example when I see it. Now I'm not focusing his Mountain King because of that potion of lesser invulnerability. I might have otherwise, especially because I've got that level 2 coil. But I'm not really even focus firing that much, and it's not that important to focus fire because my fiends are kind of doing it automatically, or not. So not good micro on my part in that I'm not focus firing. I mean, I am kind of, but not completely. Now here, you see this fiend here that's getting focused. That would be a good time to burrow and coil it. I didn't have coil there, but that would have, like if I tried to move the fiend back, and again with this fiend, if I'm going to move the fiend back, it's going to take too many hits and it's going to die. So now would be a good time to have burrowed the fiend and to coil it. And there are better circumstances than that. But I think you guys can kind of see what I'm getting at here. Now here, this fiend, this one that's getting focus fired, would be good to move back, and you'll see I've moved it back. The coil wasn't necessary though, but now he's bolted. Well, could have been better. Now this fiend here could kind of go either way, but I would say moving it back because some of the units attacking it are melee, and that's what I'm trying to do here. And now I'm burrowing it, and now it's dying. So, yeah. Whereas if I had continued to move it back, it would have not died. So there it would have been better to just keep on moving it back. But whatever. So now I'm going after this Mountain King. If I just had a coil, he'd be pretty much dead, but he's pretty much forced to retreat at this point. So that's kind of where that little battle thing ends. So let's go ahead and put this back up to 1x speed in 3, 2, 1, 1x speed. Alright. Now, at this point, there's nothing he can really do. He doesn't have, as long as there's no bolt on that Mountain King, I'm pretty much free to attack him, but he's getting it back very quickly, which I failed to realize. So I think he's going to bolt me here. But I need to be more careful. That was my Death Knight there. Yup, right there, bolt, and you can go right after that, and but I can run away. So again, this is good positioning on my part, if you'll notice. A lot of his units have been attacking my melee units, and more importantly, my fiends are uphill. Now you see that fiend I just tried to burrow? That was a bad use of burrow. I could have easily run it uphill, and he would not have been able to see it in his vision. So another bad use of burrow there. So I should have run it back though. So I'm just trying to, even though these aren't the best examples, I'm just trying to give you guys some tips there. Now here, clearly, good use of TP, since he would have been able to kill my Death Knight if it continued to run away. So at this point now, I see there's all these breakers and stuff. I don't want to go mass fiends against mass breakers particularly, so I decided I'm going to tech up to tier 3. I'm going to unsummon my Temple of the Damned, because those breakers can control magic on my skeletons. My one bad move here is that I've selected beetles on my Crypt Lord instead of Spike Carapace, and realistically, against that many breakers, it probably would be a lot better to go for Spike Carapace, since he can control magic on the beetles, and that's why I got rid of the Temple of the Damned. I'm getting a second Slaughterhouse now, and I'm just planning on massing Abominations, since that pretty much counters his entire army at the moment. So that's my plan, that's my macro. I think it's pretty decent macro, except for that. I mean, you might consider it over-countering. It's not necessarily a good idea to unsummon the buildings. It's good to keep your options open, so I wouldn't really recommend it unless you need money. And in this case, that wasn't necessary. I didn't need money. I'm not building units immediately. So I think it was a bad call, actually, to unsummon the temple. I could have used it. But the switch to A-bombs is definitely a good call, in my opinion. And as you'll see, that helps me along in my game. You'll notice also where I placed that slaughterhouse, I didn't put it out front. I kind of put it to the side, so it's not easy for him to walk in and kill it. I mean, everybody puts their stuff out in front, but if you ever have the option to put your stuff out to the side or to the back, always take it. Because that can, I have won and lost games because of that, because I've been able to get up buildings that I wouldn't have been able to get up otherwise, or I've lost buildings when I really didn't need to. So as you can see, even though his Crippler is only level 2 and he doesn't even have Spike Carapace, he's really, really great tank in that he's very, very easy to heal, and he can just sit there and I can creep all the big camps. So at this point, now this is real cool. I start TPing and I realize there's an Ankh sitting on the ground, so I snag the Ankh, and then I TP, and you notice I TP behind my Ziggurat. That's because my fiends are ranged. I don't want to TP in the middle of him. So I'm in real good positioning here, except that I'm kind of stuck behind my buildings, but I've got my melee units out front, and I got my fiends firing on whatever I decide I want them to focus fire on. So pretty good positioning on my part, and I don't believe he's got control magic, so these beetles aren't really wasted. Notice I didn't summon any beetles before I got level 3. Now, my Death Knight's getting focus fired here, and I had that Ankh, so I quickly pass him the Ankh, and now he dies, but he's got the Ankh, so he's going to stay in the battle. However, my opponent realizes this, and so he's still surrounding the Death Knight, and too bad, there goes my Death Knight. But I thought it was a valiant effort on my part. Now I realize here, oh boy, the Mountain King is getting hit by slow and by my Ziggurat and all my fiends. Let's finish him. Bam, down goes the Mountain King. So in fact, I traded my Death Knight for his Mountain King. Not a bad trade at all, in my opinion. Since basically, I can continue to fight him without my Death Knight. I mean, I definitely can, and there's no way he's going to be able to fight me without that threat to my heroes. I mean, there's no way for him to pick off fiends without Stormbolt. I mean, that Mountain King is so important for him in this situation. At this point, even those 2 abominations make all the difference in the world. And at this point, the game has completely turned around in my favor, I feel. Simply because at the moment, he has no counter to my abomination. Let's take a look at his base. He's putting up a Griffin Aviary. Notice, by the way, the positioning of that Griffin Aviary is absolutely terrible, if I may criticize. Not to criticize, but it really is. It's at the top of the hill, so it's very easy to acquire, I guess. I mean, it's not bad in that if I'm A-clicking, I'll be going up the hill, but realistically, look at all that space he's got, like behind his gold mine and stuff. He could have gone anywhere there, and there's really no reason to take that risk. So I'm going to put Fog of War back on. So I'm giving chase now. I don't want to going too much, especially if he gets that Mountain King back all of a sudden. I don't know how long it's been. Let's take a look. No, he's not even close. But still, I don't want to take that risk. And also, you'll notice in a second when he comes down this hill, look what he's got with him. Where are they? Oh, look at all those militia. My, oh my. Those militia are a big, big threat, even if you don't think they are. Each of them is like a footman and a half. So I don't want to mess with them too much. So I'm just backing up here. Again, real nice positioning on my part in that all my melee units are taking the hits and my fiends are pretty much free to focus fire. Now he's trying to get in the middle here, but he's, clearly the militia, which are really the biggest threat to my fiends, are not much of a threat right now. And I'm doing a good job of keeping them away from my fiends. I've got a nice kind of protective circle around them. Now again, you see now there where I burrowed that crypt fiend, that was a good use, because if I was going to run it away, I think anyway, if I was going to run away, it would have had to walk around too much and it would have taken a few too many hits there. Now he's got a griffin, but that's okay for me because I got a bunch of fiends, so I can just very, very easily web the griffin and take it out. And now he pretty much realizes how screwed he is. Not to mention that I'm about to get level 3 on my death line. So I should be focusing his Archmage now, which I had, so he puts on that potion. But at this point, there's really nothing he can do. He's got no expansion, and I've got him countered pretty nicely with 2 level 5 heroes. So this is kind of his last ditch effort, I guess, although, well, no, he just leaves now. But so yeah, so pretty well played on both of our parts. I think a little better played once he sees I've got destroyers, he leaves, because clearly he's got no way to deal with destroyers. But anyway, that's just my new little approach versus human, which I haven't really seen too many people doing, and I know you guys want to see more games versus human. So hope you learned some new stuff, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys around.